totally honestly, it really scares me. Genuinely terrifies me playing those games. You know, I used to get terrified playing Doom, you know, and this is a very similar thing. I can watch horror films, I love horror films, but playing video game horror films, playing video games horrors, that really throws me. I don't like it. It's too complicated. So no, I haven't.
That's fair.
Video game movies are notoriously challenging to connect with audiences. And what were you guys cognizant of that on the set and trying to make this something that audiences could really get into?
Yeah, I think they've got a checkered past, video games, that you turn into movies. I always feel that if it's got a strong enough story, like I think something does, that it will work as a video game. But yeah, I mean, it's always like with so many things now. It's an adaptation, and adapting to please everyone is now impossible. So you have to just trust in what you're doing, trust what the director's doing. And I really trust in Michael, and I think he knows this game inside out, backwards. You know, he knows it, and you just have to hear him talk about it, and he knows all these theories. And so yeah, I trust him, but I think hopefully it'll turn out.
Well, this franchise has been around in video game form for about 12, 13 years now.
Yeah.
Why do you think it has endured for so long? What are the elements that make it endure for so long?
I think it's been around. Well, as a video game, what the elements?
It's a video game for 12 years, and I think a movie franchise for what, 3 or 5?
I think it's what I love about this, about Silent Hill as a video game or as a movie is that the elements of not being sure, insecurity, or like this overall paintbrush of fear that is created, rather than it just being a jump factor thing. It's I think in the video game you can choose different paths, and one of them might be wrong and the other might be right. That in itself is quite tension making, and I think hopefully we bring that to the film. You don't know whether these characters have made the right or wrong choices, or you don't know what they're seeing is real or what reality is, and all of that kind of that vibe around the film. I think that's what people fall in love with. Yeah.
Your character in the movie sort of seems like he's dragged into the Silent Hill world through Heather's journey. So what can you tell us about your character's experience and stuff like that?
I can't say too much about my character. I know that's a cop-out story, but of everyone in this movie, I think I've got the character that I can't really talk about. There's going to be some surprises about who he is and what he is, and surprises for people who played the game because he differs. And I was always told by the director, maybe don't go too far to look at the character in the game because we're going to change him, so that might not be helpful. I put it this way: I liked him as a character, and I'd like him as a human being. So I think that's far as I'm concerned.
Is there more freedom in playing a character that is very different from the source material versus playing like Jon Snow in Game of Thrones, where we see very much in his head in the books?
Both first two TV or film things I did have been adaptations, so there's always been a source material there. Definitely say with Thrones I went far more into looking at him in the books so as to how to play off the screen than I did for this, because I don't think it was helpful for this. It's always a kind of balancing act of how much you stay true to the source material and how much you make it your own, and you have to do both. Hopefully you find a happy medium. But yeah, they were very different beasts, these two things.
So did you find freedom in the fact that you were sort of creating this character fresh, or was it more difficult because you didn't have
freedom? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, it was nice to be able to start afresh with the character. Although I've always had the slight fear that people know who this character, like with Jon Snow, people know who this character is already. They have predetermined ideas of who he is, and will I live up to what they want him to be? It's always slightly scary, that situation. But in the actual process, of creating him as a character, I enjoyed that freedom.
Just to kind of follow up on that question a little bit and delve a little deeper. When you're an actor and you do take on the role of a character that's kind of iconic with this original source material, how do you know where to draw the line in terms of how much prior research? How do you know when to draw the line in terms of how much prior research you're going to do before you go before the cameras? Are you going to play the game to a certain extent and go, wait a second, this may be completely different? Because if you play the game, then you can't help but
bring something of that character. Yeah. I don't know. I decided not to look at the character in the game too much with this because I was warned against doing that. And I looked at, and for example, in Thrones, there's a lot of people who haven't read the books. They decide to just go on what the script say, and that's one way of doing things. There's nothing wrong with that. But with this, that's more of the approach I took. I didn't want to get too close to the character in the game because I knew it'd be so different. Not so different. There'd be differences.
So on Thrones, you're no stranger to working with special effects, but this movie is clearly extremely special effects intensive. Is that a different challenge for you as an actor, or is it all just acting?
There was very there was one incredible CGI sequence in this which I've seen and I wasn't part of. But apart from that, it was all very visceral. There were lots of people dressed up in costumes. There was hardly any CGI. In Thrones, there's very little CGI. Actually, it's quite sort of anything that can be made or can be created, it is done, and I think that can only help actors. I've done bits and pieces on other things where it's heavily CGI, and it does take quite a lot of imagination to go, right, you're in a green room and this is space. It's incredibly difficult sometimes CGI. So I've been lucky with these two things, and I think it helped in this.
Isn't there more CGI in this than there is in Game of Thrones? Because you're outdoor shooting the natural elements in Thrones, and it seems like this would be more CGI heavy.
There's very little CGI in this film.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's apart from the one sequence, there's virtually none. And that's I think it's very rare these days. Very kind of very good. I enjoyed it.
And Game of Thrones is a hugely budgeted show for TV. How does it compare shooting something on that scale versus shooting something on the scale, or how would you compare the scale of Game of Thrones to a smaller movie like this?
Well, TV is always going to have, even if it is Thrones, going to have less money than a film. So this probably was on the same scale as Thrones as far as what we had, what resources we had for this. So it's interesting shooting Thrones because it's very high budget TV. So I've been spoiled as to what TV is and what TV means. So I moved into film and actually it was very little difference in how long the setups took in what the props department was like. It's very the two experiences are very similar.
Now, both the Game of Thrones and Silent Hill, they're very high in intensity in terms of all the scenes and stuff. What's it like always go into such these high intensity scenes all the time?
I think if you're always going to be doing a rom-com or a domestic drama where things are less intense, you may want that environment. You might want. I want to do something like Thrones, where it's the same with me. I've done a lot of stuff which is the stakes are very, very high all the time, and I now have a feeling in my career that I want to try out everything. So I want to do something where it isn't like that. I don't always want to be doing it. I think I'll give myself a heart attack if I do. But yeah, so I don't know. It is tiring. It is tiring. Filming Thrones, filming this, very tiring because in this you're always about to die. The stakes are so high. It's exhausting.
Is there anything you could tell us about season 3?
How was it filming with Ciarán Hinds?
Ciarán Hinds.
Yeah.
Ciarán Hinds is one of the most lovely men you will ever meet, and also one of the most fantastic actors. I'm so privileged with the people I've worked with. the other older actors I've worked with, and he's now another addition to that list that I can say I've worked with several times.
I know it took a while to find the right mix. Do you know what it was about him that they were like, you finally found